Resurrecting Their Stories Conference. Thrilled that all of you could be here with us, and particularly grateful to Asa Jackson and all of those who've made this wonderful retreat center our venue for the day. As you look out behind you, you are in the sightline of the Pettus Perry Bridge, and so the staff here say, learn about nonviolence from this place as we look at the site of Bloody Sunday, perhaps the most violent, in many ways, days in our country's history over there, in that direction. For the Civil Rights and we are really pleased to be holding this third session in partnership with the Elmore Bowling Foundation of Lowndes County, and also very pleased to be so close to Lowndes County. We're going to hear today about the Elmore Bowling Foundation's project to restore a school in Lowndes County. So it's really wonderful to be here and to be enjoying this very, very strong partnership that between those of us who are in Boston and those of us who are here down in Alabama. The Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project's goal and aim is to collect the stories of all of those who fell victim to racial violence in the Jim Crow era. As this weekend commemorates Bloody Sunday, an event in 1965, and historians have carefully mined 1965, 1964, all through the 1960s to tell us the stories of those who struggled and who persevered, and of the benefits that our society has enjoyed on account of their struggles and their sacrifice. One of our first conferences, indeed our very first conference, was in Boston, Massachusetts 10 years ago. And we hosted Michael Jackson, who was the district attorney here in Selma, and who brought a prosecution years after the fact. He was a young man, I don't know if he's still in office here, but he brought a prosecution to prosecute the murderer of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who fell in the violence in Selma in 1960, here in Selma in 1965. So in some sense we feel this is full circle. But our project is also makes an effort to throw a spotlight on an earlier era in American history, the 1940s and 1950s, when the battles for equality, for equal status, for dignity, for all of our people, for African American people, were certainly as intense as they were in the better known era of the 1960s. Certainly the battles were as important as they were when Dr. King led the marchers across the Pettus Perry Bridge and on their way to Montgomery. But that period of our American history has really been lost to us for many reasons. And so our project began as a project to look closely at, again, to take a close look at those who lost their lives and what could be done for them, what could be at this point done to recover the goals and missions of their lives in the 1960s. But we quickly turned our attention to the 1940s. And we have collected about 500 cases, and we believe that there are another 500 out there, at least another 500 out there, of individuals who, in their small way, tried to change the face of this nation, and who lost their lives on account of that. Included in our collection is the story of Rayfield Davis, who passed away in 1948. Rayfield Davis lived in Mobile, Alabama, and he worked at an Air Force base, Army base there, the Brooklyn Airfield, Air Force Base. One day he was riding home from work with a white co-worker, And President Truman, had just adopted a non-discrimination principle for the U.S. Armed Services. And he got in a conversation with his white coworker and asked the white coworker, "We'll have a drink." The white coworker first said, "No, I don't, ridiculous, I'm not going to drink with your kind." And Rayfield Davis said, "Well, you know, the end of that kind of hatred is around the corner. President Truman has just desegregated the armed forces." Rayfield Davis stepped off the bus. The white coworker stepped behind him and killed him. Right there in the street. Rayfield Davis's family is here with us today, and we're grateful for their presence and looking forward to their story. Another of the cases among our files is that of Hattie McDuffie. Hattie McDuffie, I'm sorry.
Della.
Della McDuffie. Thank you so much. Della McDuffie was an industrious woman who ran a cafe. One day, her cafe was invaded by law officers. Della McDuffie at that time was sitting in a wheelchair collecting the money from those who came into the cafe to buy a glass of beer, have a good time. She was told to get up from her wheelchair. Get up, old lady. She couldn't get up. Shooting commenced, and Della McDuffie was beaten to death. Her husband sought to vindicate her murder, talked to public officials all across this town, and ultimately that family was chased out of Alabama. The McDuffie family is here with us today, and we're grateful for their presence. We'll have other families as well, sharing their stories with us. And today is also a day to welcome into our circle high school educators who are using all of this material to transmit these lessons, these concrete history lessons, as well as these lessons about values and morals and an American future to their children, to their students. And we will hear, grateful for their presence, the students who participate in a program based on this civil rights history in New Jersey. Thank you very much, Stuart Wexler, and thank you to your students for joining us. And we'll hear as well from a teacher in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Kathleen Fitzgerald, and her student, who as well have investigated these civil rights cases from the 1940s and 1950s. We have a long and rich day ahead of us. Others will be joining us as we move along. And we hope that, sorry, my daughter. I apologize. And we hope that as we move along, all will participate so we can build a stronger, build the strength of our organizations, the NAACP, the Civil Rights Restorative Justice Project, and the Elmo Bowen Foundation. But more importantly, so that we can move this history into our present, where it really belongs, and we can use it to make a difference for all of us. So thank you all for coming. Before I give up the podium, I do want to acknowledge my dear friend, Mrs. Manthis, Bob Manthis's wife, who is here with us today. Bob was a civil rights activist and hero in the 1960s. He and I worked together in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in Mississippi and in Alabama. And I'm so proud and pleased to have you join us this evening. It's my great pleasure now to introduce Ankit Jackson. She's the queen of all we see in front of us. It's a beautiful sight and a beautiful contribution to our struggles and our progressive movement, and we thank you so much for opening your space to us. Thank you.
Everyone can hear me. I don't need a mic. Good. My name is Ayanka Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of the Selma Center for Nonviolence, Truth, and Reconciliation here at the Healing Waters Retreat Center. We were founded in March of 2015 amidst the 50th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March and Bloody Sunday. On that weekend, thousands of flyers were distributed by the KKK on one extreme, and on the other extreme we had 2 murders that Sunday and 2 more within a month in a town that's less than 20,000 people. In 2014 we were the poorest county in the state. 2015 we were the most dangerous place to live in Alabama. In 2016 we were the 8th most dangerous place per capita in the country. So this place where nonviolence on the Edmund Pettus Bridge overcame violence, the 8th most violent place per capita, dangerous place per capita in the country. This should not be. We believe that broken relationships have led to a broken economy, which has led to broken communities that all need healing. And so that's what we do here at the Selma Center. We are engaged with the community to help heal those institutions. Dr. Lafayette, which is one of our founders, who was a leader in the Nashville sit-ins and the Freedom Rides and the Selma movement, and who Dr. King appointed to be over the Poor People's Campaign, he said that we needed a Selma 2 because there was unfinished business of the civil rights movement. And so we are about the Selma 2.0 movement, and we are so excited to have as a partner the Black Belt Community Foundation and the Kellogg Foundation for the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. Selma was chosen as one of 14 sites for that. And so a part of all of that work, and with Northeastern Law School, we've designed this program over the yesterday, today, and tomorrow to be able to look at that history so we can heal from that history so that we can transform our communities. We started off this morning with a soil collection at the site of the old Dallas County Jail. And there were 2 men who were released to mobs and murdered outside of the Dallas County Jail. And this is the soil from that location. We have passed out that information to people, but because most of you all weren't able to be there, I did just want to share a little bit about them, if that's okay. We had a time this morning where we had some prayer, we had libation, we had songs, and we collectively filled these jars of soil. Willie Webb, Selma, Dallas County, February 14, 1892. And this is the second page of what you have. In the early morning hours of February 14, 1892, an armed mob kidnapped Willie Webb from the Selma jail and killed him. The day before, Mr. Webb had been arrested and charged with raping a white woman, Mrs. Crump. Suspecting mob violence, the police took Mr. Webb from Waynesville to a jail in Selma, but Mrs. Crump's husband organized a well-armed lynch mob, which included his colleagues from his mechanic shop, and pursued Mr. Webb to Selma. Although surviving newspaper accounts are not clear on exactly how Mr. Webb was killed, it is known that the mob got access to him after 11 p.m. on February 13th, and he died sometime that night. Mr. Webb was never convicted of an offense. For a black man living in the South during the era, an arrest or even an accusation was often tantamount to a guilty verdict and death sentence. All the authorities knew that Mr. Webb would be lynched prior to a proper investigation, and trial newspapers were predicting his lynching. More than a day in advance, they did not take sufficient steps to protect his life. None of the surviving newspaper accounts of this incident suggest that Mr. Webb's killer were punished. Although it was well known and even published in newspapers that Mr. Crump, husband of the alleged victim, led the lynch mob that killed Mr. Webb, none of the available accounts of incidents indicate that he faced legal consequences. More than half of the over 4,000 lynching victims that EJI has documented were killed because of accusations of violent crime. At that time, the prevailing sentiment in the white community was that black men were dangerous, uncontrollable, and sexual aggressive. As a result, they were usually presumed guilty when accused. Swift lynchings reinforced the racial caste that put the civilized white men in control of the supposedly violent black men, and were especially common in cases like this, where whites perceived a black man as a threat to a white woman. So that last paragraph was so important because you can hear that those things still exist, those values, those beliefs, false beliefs still exist. And so if we don't look at this history, if we don't talk about this history, if we don't speak their names, then the legacy of that history will continue to exist. So I'm so grateful for you all for continuing to speak their names, speaking the names of those who have experienced racial terror. I was trying to look at the time, but my phone won't come on. We're good. Okay, so I'll just read Daniel Edwards as well. Selma, Dallas County, June 24th, 1893. On June 24th, 1893, a furious mob removed Daniel Edwards from the Selma jail, hanged him from a tree, and riddled his body with bullets. Mr. Edwards worked on a farm near Selma where he became intimate with a white farm owner's daughter. After the two had been in a clandestine relationship for about 1 year, the daughter gave birth to a child. When she disclosed the fact that Mr. Edwards was the father, he was thrown into jail, but a mob of about 100 men took him from the jail and hanged him. The lynch mob penned the following note to Mr. Edwards' back: warning to all black men that are too intimate with white girls. This, the work of 100 best citizens of the South Side. Although this note implies that the mob understood the consensual nature of the relationship between Mr. Edwards and the woman, many of the press dispatches describing the incident state that Mr. Edwards was lynched for rape. Mr. Edwards' killers, the so-called 100 best citizens, faced no legal consequences for his death. Nearly 25% of the more than 4,000 documented lynchings of African Americans were based on charges of sexual assault or rape. However, as the lynching of Daniel Edwards tragically illustrates, sexual assault often meant any contact between a black man and a white woman that violated cultural norms. The definition of sexual assault was broad and required no allegation of force because white institutions, laws, and most white people rejected the idea that a white woman could or would willingly consent to sexual contact with a black man. Any action by a black man that could be interpreted as seeking contact with a white woman stoked the pervasive fears of interracial sex between uncontrollable and sexual aggressive black men and white women. Daniel Edwards was one of at least 19 African American victims of racial terror lynching killed in Dallas County between 1882 and 1935. And tomorrow we will unveil a marker in honor of those men and others who were lynched here in Selma and Dallas County at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So once we cross the bridge, we will then do that at 3:30. And so we invite you all to be a part of that. The other thing that we invite you to be a part of in closing is that talking about this stuff, tough, like, and not as tough as those of the families that are here who have had to experience it and had to live through it. And so we thank you for your presence. And we also recognize that these things can make us angry. And we have to direct that anger in a way that is righteous and helpful and to build the relationships needed to heal and transform. So we will have healing circles here that the Kellogg Foundation will be sponsoring, the Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Kellogg Project will be sponsoring in order to build the relationships necessary to heal and transform our community. So we invite you to that as well. Thank you. That's from 5 to 7. That's the panel.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you so much, Aika. I also did want to acknowledge the planners of this conference today, Dr. Rhonda Jones, Vicki Rothbaum, and Aika, Margaret Russell, and the others who, Joe, of course, and those who have labored so hard to make it possible for us all to be here. This doesn't just happen overnight, it took a lot of planning, and so we thank you so much for your leadership and your participation in making sure that we could all get here together, have fellowship together, and also that we are fed by the best cook in, if not the country, the world. That would be Callie Greer and her husband, Mr. Greer. So they're back there to keep us really happy all day long, well fed and happy all day long, and we thank them for that. So with that,
And they can't even text me your lunch
Yeah,
yet.
wait till after lunch and then y'all. Thank you.
thank you so much. So we'll get to work and start with our very first panel. I owe Joe a better introduction than that. I'm so sorry, Joe. Our very first discussant will be Joe McCall, Joe Bowman McCall, who obviously is partnering with us in this program and has shared with us before, and will tell us again, her journey to discover how her father was lynched and the impact that it had on her family and her community. Joe will share that with us, as well as the work that the Elmore Bowling Foundation is continuing to do in the name of her father in Lowndes County, in particular with respect to the 1873 established Lowndes County School.